Fun is what I'm trying to put back into sci-fi, along with a whole bunch of others like Black Knight.
Yeah.
Mine's kind of a lighthearted joke, so
Yeah. Maji Chan's definitely got a fun fantasy sci-fi going on. So, do you have solidified plans for that yet, or is that still up in the air?
I'm still waiting on the betas. It sounds like I'm gonna have some serious revision, but that's all right. It'll be for the better.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna shoot for Christmas, but if I have to do some serious revision, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well,
But
that you can't calculate until you get all the feedback.
no. However, if they do end up liking the story, we're probably gonna create two different Shalar books. Just because how big I made it.
So yours is a novel and maybe the companion anthology or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. But then that way everybody else can, still do their stories and not be either trimmed down or forced in or. And it could get spaced out a little bit better because I know everybody's kind of doing different paces. I kind of didn't want to do it that way because I wanted it to be, one mass book for fun. I feel
yeah, we all
bad.
did, but I'm still glad it went the way it went because you have a complete novel and that's freaking awesome.
Like I said, I feel kind of bad, but at the same time, because it is a complete novel, I don't want to, make everybody else carry the complete novel.
I'm actually half tempted to put my Shalar story in the back of Bad Kitty too. It does pick up 6 months after, so
True. Well, I don't know. Like, I haven't heard from any of the other Shalar writers, so I'm not sure if anybody else is still writing or not. I mean, I have Snow's poems still, and I know Trippy wrote some.
And I'm still up for doing the whole anthology thing. But
I just kind of destroyed the original plan. It wasn't intentional.
Yeah, but again, worth it.
Hopefully. Like I said, I haven't heard back from the betas though.
Well, I can only speak to what I've read of it, and from what I read of it, I enjoyed it. So
yeah. Well, what's funny is you read the slow part.
Yeah, right. Well, that was the character build up part. And you know what the part, like what I consider the slow part in my current book is what I was like dreading being too slow or
that was my biggest
clunky.
fear. I was afraid there was too much dialogue and it was a little too slow at the beginning. Granted, the first 2 chapters was originally 1 chapter, but I split it in half because of size.
Yeah.
So I'm like, is this a little? But I think so far, from what I've heard, it's not bad. It could be a little bit better, but it's not bad.
Yeah, that was my biggest worry because the inciting incident doesn't happen until chapter 7. So I'm like, this is taking way too long. But according to betas, they were not bored leading up to it. So
yeah, and that is the balance. That is the hard part: is building up the story without being boring or dumping all the info.
Because I looked at pretty much what I had, and I was afraid there was like I kind of had this roller coaster analogy in my head where it's like build up, and then it takes off. But I was like, the build up was taking too long.
Yeah, that's why I tried to have the characters doing silly stuff in the backgrounds and stuff just to keep the reader's attention.
Probably because you keep calling them betas.
But yeah, no, I'm in that hurry up and wait. But I like I said, I feel bad because it wasn't supposed to be that long. The original story was my prologue. And then I started asking questions, and it kind of went from there.
Well, don't feel bad because I mean the whole exercise clearly worked better than expected.
Yeah. When I when I sat down, I'm like, oh, this sounds like it'll be a really cool story. How am I gonna fit everybody in it? Because I wrote out like the prologue. Well, I didn't write out the prologue I have, but I wrote out this situation. I'm like, okay, how am I gonna fit everyone in here? And then it just kind of grew from there. And then I totally made. I'm like, dude, I can make that like happen millions of years prior, and then do all this crazy stuff with it.
I still
So
think it's funny. A character named Shalar is canon to Bad Kitty.
to me, it's the land, but yeah, it's whatever it needs to be.
I can't wait to see all the different versions of what people came up with just off of Shalar.
Oh, I
Just
know,
a
right?
word. Like, what can you do with that?
Well, technically, it's named, so everybody can use it. But yeah, no, like I said, I do feel bad, but at the same time, it kept growing and growing, and the more I got into it, the more excited I got about it, and changed the ending, changed everything about it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I like how it ended. I'm just curious to see if they like how it ended.
Well, I probably told you guys before. When I decided, okay, I can't make this the thing I want, I guess I'll make it a book. I thought it was going to be a short story, a novella tops. I never expected it to reach novel level. And the one I'm working on now is like much bigger, and I did not intend for that either. It just kind of grew. But
yeah,
when
no,
you think of it's weird when you write something down, you start to think about it in a bit of a different way. And then you start asking questions like, well, why is this character there? Well,
the
why did this
questions
one
is
show
what
up?
got me.
Yeah, and then you're trying to fill in those details to make things make sense, and you end up with so much more than you originally intended.
Mhm.
Sometimes to the point where it's like, okay, this is unnecessary information, trim that out. And then when you're going through thinking I got too much, I got to trim it out. It's like, oh crap, I forgot this. And so you end up adding stuff in, and it's like, it
Well,
really can take off on you. It becomes its own thing.
the first edition of the story, because technically it's gone through two, we're on edition number 2, and then of course there'll be a third revise after beta. But the first edition was only just around 60,000 words, and then after we got done with the revision, rewrite, add-ins, whatnot, we ended up with 68,000.
Just
We
keeps
added
going
in,
and going and going
yeah,
and going.
we added in more chunks, but it was for that reason though. It was like, so like Gino, when he was reading through, he'd like circle an area. He's like, what happens after? I want to know what happened. I mean, how did this happen?
Yeah, and that actually is such a huge help because sometimes we have a scene in our mind, so we're writing it down, but because we have all those details in our own head, we tend to forget, hey, other people don't have that context and will not explain things thoroughly, so a reader will come on and go, I don't understand what I'm looking at. And that's Gino is pointing all that out. It's like, who is he talking about here? You didn't you didn't tag it properly, so it's catching all that little crap that could really mess things up for a reader along the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has a future as a developmental editor if he decides to.
I told him he should probably get a hold of Daniel, get some tips from him. But
Right?
but yeah, so that's what's happening with that. It's coming. I hate to diverge from the original plan, but considering fact I technically took three of our word limits and smashed them together into one. I don't see how there's any way out of it, especially since before the revisions I'm at 205 pages. So
Yeah. Well, that page count can still change
Alter.
quite a bit
Mhm.
once you format for print.
Exactly. And that's not something I want to ditch on somebody else.
Yeah.
Because that's not including like any of the title pages, any, chapter on these pages, glossary, anything like that. And Gino says I should probably have some sort of thing in the back, some sort of glossary, because of how many species or how many races I've made up, and
Oh, wow.
just a little reference for anybody. Then that way I didn't bog down the reader when they were reading.